Hey friends, welcome back for part 2 of planning out your yearly garden. So in the first video, I talked to you about the process and how I kind of get everything organized. In today's video, I am going to show you how I use my whiteboard to draw out all my beds and get everything organized as for where I'm going to plant and what I'm going to plant with different things. And then I'm going to show you what I am going to be planting in the upcoming months. So let's head back inside and keep going. Okay, so let me show you, for instance, how I'm going to draw out the bed here and how I'm going to space everything. Okay guys, I'm going to attempt to do this with the camera facing down. Hello. So I have my whiteboard here. I'm just going to get a black marker and draw out the bed. So this is going to be my 4x3 bed. So 3 over here, 4 over here. And since I plant by square foot gardening, I'm just going to piece the bed out. And this is going to be bed 3, where I'm going to be putting the broccoli, beets, and radishes. Oop. Okay, so down here, I'm going to write B for broccoli, which is going to be 1 per square foot, so 1 plant per square foot. And then I'm going to use red for my R red for my radish, which is going to be 9 per square foot. And then I'm going to use purple BE for my beets, which are going to be 16 per square feet. So when I'm looking at the bed and I'm realizing how many can go in each space, I need to think about, oh, what is my family going to eat and use? So the broccoli take up more room, so I'll probably want to plant more square feet of broccoli than the radish and the beets. You know, we like radish and beets, but we don't eat them all the time. So I may only do like 2 squares for those and use the rest for broccoli. Broccoli are also going to get really, really big. The radishes and the beets aren't going to get as big because they're root plants. So since my sun goes across my bed and the broccoli are the biggest, I'm probably going to plant the broccoli in the back and then put the radishes and the beets in the front. So I'm probably gonna do my beets here, and then radishes here, and then broccoli, here. So I have everything planned out. Something that I'll be thinking of when it actually comes time to plant, to do the seeds outside or start seeds indoors, is succession planting. So I don't necessarily want to plant my broccoli where it's all going to crown up at the same time. I don't need 8 heads of broccoli all at once. I need maybe 1 or 2 this week and next week and next week. So I'll be starting the seeds in succession. So maybe a couple this week, a couple next week, and so on and so on. Same with the beets and the radishes. See if I can play with it a little to space them out to kind of extend the growing season. Because especially with the beets and the radishes, once it grows and you pull it, that's it. It's not going to give you more fruit. The broccoli, it'll create a center crown. After you take that center crown off, it'll start to shoot out smaller side crowns, so you can eat those. So that also extends the growing season. But basically, I'll do this process with each bed, and then I'll actually take a picture of it. I'm gonna write it down, but I'm very visual and I like to see a picture, and this is gonna really help me when I go to actually plant. Now, when talking about spacing within the bed, for instance, the beets, I like to come back to and just kind of draw out how I would actually be planting. So if there's 16 beets in 1 square foot, it's basically going to be a 4x4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I can do this in each square as well to kind of showcase where I would be planting things. Okay, the next thing that I'll show you guys is kind of my master list on where I'm going to be putting everything and when I'm going to be planting. Let me zoom in closer. So I've already figured out what I want to plant, what am I going to pair things with based off companion planting, where I'm going to put everything in my beds. Now I'm going to go through and actually just make me a master calendar on when I need to plant everything. So for instance, carrots, you want to plant kind of between the end of September to October by seed. I just write down carrots here because I know for my frame of reference that means carrots are going to go by seed outdoors. But for instance, broccoli does really good transplanting. So I am going to start broccoli in September by seed indoors, and it'll be ready 6 to 8 weeks later to transplant in November. I'm gonna do that with a bunch of the flowers, the tomatoes and the peppers, and maybe a couple of other things. But a lot of stuff needs to be planted straight outside direct sowing. So that's gonna be all of my main things that I'm listing here that don't have seed next door to them. You can see that my calendar, I really don't have a lot to do in August, but September is kind of when things get going. So our fall to spring growing season kind of goes from September to December, a little bit in January, and then the spring garden starts prepping in January, plant in March and April, and then in April as well as May, we're coming in and planting things for the summer. On this calendar, I haven't included May, June, and July. Once the fall gets going, I will kind of start to go out towards the summer, but in general, I kind of know what I'm going to be planting in the summer. Now, as I said before, one thing that I'm really trying to do this year is a cut flower garden. So you also need to think about when you go to plant and grow something, how long is it going to last? So for instance, this fall, my cut flowers, I'm growing Queen Anne's lace, several different bulbs, and corms like ranunculus, anemones, daffodils. I'm going to have poppies, wildflowers. I'm going to have tulips, maybe something else. Pretty much all of this is going to get planted in the fall, anywhere from September through December, and it's actually not going to grow until the springtime. So that bed is going to sit fairly empty looking until things sprout up in the springtime. Once these are actually growing, I'm actually going to be starting my fall flowers indoors. So the zinnias, snapdragons, salvia, calendula, cosmos, these will start growing and be ready to be transplanted about the time that these are starting to end. Some of them are starting to end their life cycle. So I know that some of these I'll be pulling as I'm starting to transplant some of these, and then also going to be later doing some sunflowers and marigolds and dahlias. And for me, I will have some of these in the bed, but I'm also going to have some of these in my pollinator garden as well as my front flower bed. So I don't necessarily have to have all the space in this bed, but I do want to have a list of when I need to start things and plant them, even if it's not going in the raised bed area. All right, moving on to the planner. Now that I have everything planned out, I'm going to go through and write it in my planner, which actually, this is my one for this next year, but I want to go through and write down my to-dos for every month so that I just have it all in one space and I can easily keep up with it here. But let me show you how mine looked last year. Let me get to one of the months. Okay, so let me go to October because that's a pretty busy month. So over here, there's usually a notes section. This is when I like to make notes to myself on when I need to plant things, when I'm transplanting, starting seeds indoors, what am I needing to trim or fertilize, just to make myself kind of a master list here. And then I write down in here when I actually do things. And then make notes to myself. So let me go through here. Okay, so here's a good example. Okay, so I started broccoli indoors, so I know from this point when to expect it in the future, and I can kind of make a note to myself. I sprayed some ants, I harvested zucchini and made apple zucchini bread. So that's also a note to myself, like, hey, my zucchini are doing really well. So this variety did well, it's producing at this time, so this might be something I want to think about for next year. See if I can find another page. Okay, here's another type of note that I'll make to myself. So on this particular day, I planted lettuce. And I actually planted several different varieties. So I wrote them down so that I could keep track of what was planted where. So I just made a little grid of my bed and then just kind of labeled all my different varieties, because a lot of them will look similar once they're growing, and you want to know what you like, what does well for the following year. So I like to just write pictures to myself, and I know I can go back and reference this later. Another thing that I put in my planner is just general notes in the back. As you can see, this past year I was growing a lot more bulbs, so I wanted to research a little bit more about kind of their planting, so I just kept all the information I found back here. I had some diagrams of some different beds I was growing. And then, you know, as I'm going from fall to winter to spring to summer, and it's getting to the point where I'm maybe changing my plan, then I'll come in here and start to make notes to myself on, okay, wait, scratch this. I don't want to plant this. Let me plant this instead. Okay guys, well, that's basically it. That's my whole planning process for planning out my garden for the year. I really hope that was helpful and gave you some good tips or things to think about. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to comment below, shoot me a message or an email, and be sure to check out my website, Summer Skye Gardens, for more information, and I'll see you guys next time.